Fly, Eagles, fly. Green and white family, the energy in Philly is already heating up. We may still have a few months before kickoff, but my heart is already pounding like it's game day. The excitement is real, and this team looks more than ready to make history again. Today, I've got some breaking updates to share with you straight from the Eagles locker room. A lot is happening behind the scenes, and trust me, what's coming next could change the entire course of the season. But before I drop all the details, do me a favor. Smash that like button. Only if you've been bleeding green for years. And if you're new to the Eagles family, welcome aboard, because here we all fly together. I also want you to comment down below, "Go Birds! Let's fly even higher." All right, let's jump right into the first big news. The Philadelphia Eagles have been extremely active, making a flurry of roster moves that completely reshaped both the practice squad and the depth chart heading into the new season. The front office signed 15 players to the practice squad, leaving one spot still open, and the decisions bring plenty to unpack. Linebacker Chance Campbell is back in the building despite having joined only a week ago. He has familiarity with linebackers coach Bobby King from their time in Tennessee, and while he hasn't played in a regular season game since 2023, the Eagles clearly see some potential value. He might not be an immediate impact guy, but he could carve out a role on special teams, which is often the path for fringe roster linebackers trying to stick. At wide receiver, Elijah Cooks returns after what was shaping up to be a breakout summer before a shoulder injury derailed his progress in the preseason. He's got the size and contested catch ability that stood out in training camp, but at 27 years old, entering just his third season, the clock is ticking for him to establish himself. Still, keeping him around makes sense for depth. Another notable offensive addition is running back Audric Estime, just 21 years old, a fifth-round pick by Denver in 2024. He slots in as the fourth running back behind Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, and A.J. Dillon. Estime brings power, youth, and a high ceiling, and with Sean Payton's track record of evaluating offensive talent, the Eagles could have quietly added a developmental piece who grows into a bigger role. Kenyon Green is another name worth talking about. Acquired in the trade involving C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Green has had a rough time staying healthy and showing consistency. It's rare to call one of Howie Roseman's moves a whiff, but so far this one hasn't worked out. At just 24 years old, though, he's heading into Jeff Stoutland's program, and if there's any place for a young offensive lineman to salvage his career, it's in Philadelphia. Tight end E.J. Jenkins joins the group as insurance, slotting in as the fourth tight end behind Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, and Kylan Granson. He has a clear path to the roster if injuries occur. At cornerback, Brennan Johnson showed some flashes during the preseason at nickel and gives much-needed depth at a position that's always one injury away from crisis. Patrick Johnson also returns to the practice squad, and given how strong his preseason was, it wouldn't be surprising to see him elevated early in the year to the game day roster.
Kyle McCord being retained is a storyline that stands out. Despite being QB4 behind Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, and Sam Howell, McCord has raw NFL tools and showed he can make throws at a high level. The Eagles will take the patient route with him, hoping he develops long-term under this quarterback room. Terrace Marshall is another wide receiver who made it back, essentially filling a depth role similar to Paris Campbell last season. Perry Nickerson adds versatility as a corner who can play inside or outside and had a strong camp. Holland Pierce and Antoine Powell-Ryland are developmental linemen who benefit from time in the system, with Pierce, a New Jersey native, staying close to home while learning from Stoutland. Eli Rick's return is also notable. He likely could have found a bigger opportunity elsewhere, but Philadelphia keeps him in the fold as one of their deeper depth options at corner. Safety Andre Sam rounds out the list as someone who could see temporary elevations during the season if depth is tested. One of the more intriguing additions was the Eagles claiming center Willie Lampin off waivers and immediately placing him on the 53-man roster. At 279 pounds, Lampkin doesn't fit the mold of a prototypical NFL offensive lineman, but his agility, wrestling background, and relentless style make him a fascinating project. Pro Football Focus graded him as the highest-rated rookie offensive lineman in the preseason, and under Jeff Stoutland's guidance, Lampkin has all the makings of a future fan favorite. His story as an undersized but nasty interior lineman feels tailor-made for Philadelphia, a city that embraces underdogs who fight with toughness and grit. Injury news also brought relief as 3 key players returned to practice. A.J. Brown, who missed 3 weeks with a hamstring injury, is back just in time for the season opener. Landon Dickerson, recovering from knee surgery, is also practicing again, providing stability to the offensive line. Quarterback Tanner McKee, who fractured a finger earlier in camp, is healthy too. That means the Eagles will open week 1 with their top wideout, a core offensive lineman, and their primary backup quarterback all available, massive developments considering how close the season is. With the Cowboys coming up at Lincoln Financial Field in just days, those returns couldn't come at a better time. The practice squad decisions and waiver claims show a front office laser focused on depth, development, and upside, which has long been Philadelphia's formula for sustained success. But it also raises questions about certain players left off, like Montreal Johnson, who wasn't brought back, or Anaya Smith, who instead joined the Panthers' practice squad. The Eagles also still have uncertainty around the punt returner spot, leaving special teams as a lingering concern. With all these moves, there's plenty to debate about who should have stayed, who should have gone, and who might make an impact sooner than expected. What do you think about these practice squad decisions and the addition of Willie Lampin? Did the Eagles make the right calls here? The front office's decision-making with this practice squad really highlights how Philadelphia values both short-term insurance and long-term development. Look at a player like Audric Estime. He's not going to leapfrog Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, or A.J. Dillon anytime soon, but as a 4th running back on the depth chart, he's essentially a stash with upside. He's young, powerful, and comes from a system that groomed him for physical football. That's the type of forward-thinking move that keeps the roster stacked not just for this year, but for the future. Compare that to a guy like Elijah Cooks, more experienced, less upside, but useful in the event of an injury to a wide receiver. It shows the Eagles aren't leaning too heavily in one direction. They're balancing immediate need with potential growth. Now, the Kenyon Green situation might sting a little more for fans. Anytime you give up a player like C.J. Gardner-Johnson and the return piece struggles, the optics aren't great. Green was a former first-round pick, yet he hasn't lived up to that billing and has had trouble staying healthy. But this organization has shown time and time again that Jeff Stoutland can bring out the best in linemen who may have looked like disappointments elsewhere. You think of guys who came into Philadelphia as raw or overlooked and left as quality NFL starters. Green might not turn into that, but if there's a system that gives him a chance, it's this one. And at just 24, it would be reckless to label him a lost cause already. Kyle McCord's retention is another move that reveals a lot about the Eagles' thinking. On paper, he's buried on the depth chart behind Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, and Sam Howell. But quarterback development is such a long game. The franchise knows how important it is to constantly have young arms learning behind proven starters. McCord's NFL arm strength and flashes of poise make him worth developing even if he doesn't see the field for years. If nothing else, a quarterback room with that much talent gives the Eagles tremendous flexibility in the future, whether through competition, injury insurance, or even trade value down the road. Another fascinating wrinkle is the defensive depth. Patrick Johnson's preseason was so strong that many thought he'd earn a bigger role on another roster. Instead, he returns to Philadelphia, where his ability to play off the edge makes him an easy candidate for in-season elevations. Eli